Imagine a city so vast that walking from its center to the nearest natural greenery takes 11 hours. Then imagine walking another 11 hours before you reach mountains. This is Tokyo, where 41 million people navigate what Anthony Bourdain called 15 to 20 Manhattans stitched together. Stand in Shibuya, Tokyo's pulsing heart, and you're still hours away from the city's edge. This is the largest metropolitan area on Earth, powered by the world's most intricate railway network, where multiple downtowns coexist like separate cities within a city. How did a small fishing village transform into an urban colossus that makes New York look quaint? The answer lies in 4 centuries of deliberate concentration of power, people, infrastructure, and ambition. Tokyo became the world's largest city because Japan decided, 400 years ago, to make it so. Most people think they understand urban sprawl until they encounter Tokyo. The numbers tell one story: 41 million residents, more people than all of Canada. But numbers can't capture what it feels like when a city simply refuses to end. Start walking from Shibuya Station at sunrise, and by sunset you'll still be surrounded by mid-rise apartments and train stations. The greenery never arrives, the suburbs never thin out. The city just continues in an almost hallucinogenic repetition of urban density. It would take 11 hours of continuous walking just to reach the first significant natural areas. Want to see mountains? Add another 11 hours beyond that. This isn't how cities are supposed to work. In London or Paris, you can sense the periphery approaching. Tokyo offers no such mercy. Its residential zones stretch so far that your sense of distance simply breaks down. The metropolitan region absorbed dozens of surrounding towns until the distinctions evaporated entirely. What remains is a continuous urban fabric that acknowledges no natural boundaries. This is the endpoint of urban expansion. A city that grew until it couldn't grow anymore, then kept growing anyway. Moving 41 million people should be impossible. Every morning, half of Tokyo's metropolitan population boards a train, and somehow the system doesn't collapse. This is the world's most complex transit network, a maze of subway lines, private railways, and JR East trains. Put the entire rail networks of Los Angeles, Rome, and Delhi on top of each other, and you still wouldn't match half of Tokyo's coverage. At the center sits Shinjuku Station, processing more humans daily than the entire population of Los Angeles. The efficiency is staggering. Trains arrive every 2 minutes during rush hour. Delays measured in seconds make headlines. Yet even this marvel has limits. During morning rush hour, certain lines achieve 250% capacity. This means designated pushers literally compress passengers into cars to close the doors. This isn't dysfunction. This is success when 20 million people need to reach central Tokyo between 7 and 9 a.m. The alternative would break the economy. Tokyo's transit system moves more people more efficiently than any network on Earth. Every morning, millions accept crushing crowds because Tokyo leaves no alternative. Without this infrastructure, the city's current form would be completely impossible. Most cities have one center, Tokyo has 20, and this isn't an exaggeration. Tokyo genuinely contains multiple, fully formed downtowns, each with its own skyline and distinct character. Shinjuku dominates as the busiest. Shibuya pulses with youth culture. Ginza radiates luxury. Akihabara owns otaku culture. Roppongi caters to international nightlife. These aren't neighborhoods within a downtown. They are separate downtowns. Ride the subway for 45 minutes from Shinjuku, and you won't reach suburbs, you'll reach another downtown. This multi-core structure explains how Tokyo can be so massive without collapsing. Instead of forcing everyone toward one congested center, Tokyo distributes functions across multiple nodes. Companies cluster in Marunouchi, tech firms gather in Shibuya, finance concentrates in Nihonbashi. When one center fills up, businesses simply move to the next. Because Tokyo's transit connects everything equally, location doesn't matter. The city can expand infinitely without developing areas too far from the core, because it doesn't have a single core. This wasn't planned. It evolved as Tokyo absorbed surrounding cities and transformed their centers into extensions of itself. Tokyo's size enabled neighborhood-level cultural specialization so extreme that entire districts became global synonyms for specific subcultures. Akihabara is the planetary headquarters of otaku culture. where every building houses manga shops and maid cafes stacked 6 floors high. Harajuku became the testing ground for street fashion worldwide, where teenagers create trends that ripple through TikTok and Instagram. Asakusa remains Tokyo's spiritual center, where ancient temples continue as they did centuries ago. Ginza is luxury's global flagship, where every major brand maintains its most elaborate store. Most cities can't support this specialization. They're too small or too homogeneous. Tokyo's scale changed the equation. When 41 million people live within commuting distance, even tiny subcultures become commercially viable. If only 0.1% of Tokyo's population cares about traditional tea ceremony equipment, that's still 41,000 customers. This isn't planned development. It's what happens when a city grows so large it develops internal subdivisions. Each one becomes large enough to sustain specialized economies that would fail anywhere else. 400 years ago, Tokyo didn't exist. In its place sat Edo, an insignificant fishing village far from Japan's cultural centers around Kyoto and Osaka. Nobody would have predicted this marshy plain would become anything important. Then, in 1603, Tokugawa Ieyasu unified Japan after decades of civil war and moved the effective capital from Kyoto to Edo. This wasn't symbolic. It was a consolidation of military power, economic control, and political authority in one location. He chose Edo for its geography: forests for timber, plains for agriculture, rivers for transportation, ocean access for trade. Rice from surrounding farmlands could be loaded onto boats and shipped directly into the city's center. Within decades, Edo's population exploded from tens of thousands to hundreds of thousands. By the 18th century, it had reached 1 million, making it the world's largest city. The period from 1603 to 1868 became known as the Edo period. This name reveals how completely this upstart city came to define Japan itself. The concentration was deliberate. Tokugawa required provincial lords to maintain residences in Edo and spend alternating years there. This policy funneled wealth, talent, and resources into a single location for 265 years. Even when the Tokugawa system collapsed, the city it had built remained. When American warships forced Japan to open its ports in the 1850s, the Tokugawa system crumbled within years. The Meiji Restoration of 1868 ended the shogunate and renamed Edo to Tokyo, eastern capital. But the name change barely mattered compared to what came next. Japan transformed itself within decades from a feudal society to an industrial powerhouse. Tokyo became the engine as factories rose along the waterfront, railways connected surrounding regions, and rural populations flooded in to work in textile mills and steel plants. Industrialization drove explosive population growth, and Tokyo absorbed it all. The city burned repeatedly, massive fires destroyed huge sections, and the 1923 Great Kanto earthquake killed over 100,000 people. Each disaster could have ended Tokyo's dominance, but instead became an opportunity to rebuild bigger. The pattern repeated so often it became predictable: catastrophe, reconstruction, expansion. Tokyo grew not despite disasters, but through them. Fires that would have scattered populations elsewhere only concentrated Tokyo's residents more densely. By the mid-20th century, Tokyo had established itself as East Asia's dominant metropolis. The city had survived everything: earthquakes, fires, wars, occupations, and emerged from each crisis larger than before. Tokyo's political importance meant abandoning it was never an option. Between 1960 and 1990, Japan experienced an economic explosion that seemed to defy gravity. Tokyo, as the nation's capital and economic heart, captured the lion's share of this growth. The city faced an unprecedented challenge. How do you move tens of millions of people daily when your transit system is already at capacity? The answer came through infrastructure investment on a scale the world had never seen. In 1964, Tokyo unveiled the Shinkansen, the world's first high-speed rail line. The train wasn't just faster, it was a statement that Japan had surpassed Western engineering. Tokyo didn't stop there. The city built the world's largest underground flood control system to prevent catastrophic flooding. It constructed a real-time traffic management system that monitored every major road. It expanded subway lines while coordinating private railways with public systems. Other cities built infrastructure to solve problems. Tokyo built infrastructure to enable greater growth. Each new subway line opened up previously inaccessible land. Each expressway made distant suburbs viable. By 1990, Tokyo had become the most expensive city on Earth. Its real estate was so valuable that the Imperial Palace grounds were supposedly worth more than all of California. The city's infrastructure matched its ambitions, world-class, incomprehensibly complex, and somehow functional. Scroll through social media, and you'll find countless posts marveling at Tokyo's affordability. I can't believe how cheap everything is. The surprise is genuine, especially for Americans who find meals and hotels costing a fraction of New York prices. But this perceived bargain reveals something darker about Japan's economic trajectory. Tokyo isn't cheap, the dollar is strong, and the yen is weak. For Japanese residents, the story looks completely different. In the 1990s, Japan's economy was so dominant that Americans genuinely feared being overtaken. Japanese salaries exceeded American ones. Japanese corporations bought Manhattan skyscrapers, and predictions of inevitable Japanese supremacy filled bestseller lists. Then the bubble burst. The next 30 years brought stagnation that economists still struggle to explain. Wages flatlined, deflation took hold, and while other developed nations grew, Japan treaded water. Today, Japanese real incomes have fallen so far behind that Tokyo has become affordable for foreign tourists in ways that would have seemed absurd in 1990. The infrastructure remains world-class, the trains still run on time, and 41 million people still call the metropolitan area home. But the economic dynamism that once made Tokyo synonymous with the future has faded into something more complex, a city that works brilliantly but no longer intimidates. Tokyo's supremacy as the world's largest city rests on forces that can't be easily replicated. 400 years of deliberate political concentration funneled Japan's resources into one location. Geography provided the Kanto Plain, giving Tokyo room to expand that other Japanese cities could never match. Repeated destruction from fires, earthquakes, and war became opportunities to rebuild larger and denser each time. Most critically, Japan's extreme centralization meant that as the nation grew, Tokyo grew disproportionately. Moving elsewhere became unthinkable after centuries of accumulated advantages. Today, Tokyo has entered a new phase where Japan's population is shrinking and economic growth has stalled. Yet Tokyo remains unmatched in scale, complexity, and urban functionality. No other city moves 20 million people daily with such efficiency, or sustains 20 separate downtowns. Tokyo isn't just big, it's the endpoint of a historical process that merged political will, geographic fortune, and engineering ambition across 4 centuries. An improbable megalopolis that shouldn't work but somehow does. Day after day, Tokyo endures because it's so deeply embedded in Japan's fabric that imagining the country without it has become impossible. If Tokyo's 4th-century rise to become the world's largest city fascinated you, you'll want to see what we're covering next. We're diving into the economic forces reshaping megacities around the globe, from Seoul's housing crisis to Mumbai's infrastructure challenges to New York's post-pandemic transformation. Subscribe so you don't miss how the world's greatest cities are being remade right now, and hit that like button if Tokyo's story revealed something you didn't expect.